The sounds of steady beeps from Irina's heart monitor filled the room. Issei had been sitting by her bedside for the past few hours. The events of the days before play through his head on repeat. The snapping of his friends' necks, the loss of control, the barley contained destruction he caused, and the comforting sounds of Rias consoling him for days, never commenting on his weakened state, never looking down on him for breaking down in tears. When he finally was able to get a hold of himself enough to walk, he didn't want to talk to anyone. He made his way straight to the hospital and sat by Irina's side holding her hand, afraid he would lose her too. The nurse on duty walked in to check on Irina. She took in the sight of Issei by her bed. "Sweetheart, you're still here? Dear, you have been here for 3 days. Have you even eaten anything yet?" she said in concern for the boy. Issei shook his head slowly, not really having the energy to reply. The nurse made some marks on Irina's chart as she spoke to him. "You don't need to worry about your girlfriend here. She will be just fine. She is nowhere near life-threatening and is doing well enough that should wake up in the next few days. Now you go home, get yourself some food and rest. She will still be here when you get back. You don't want her to wake up just to worry about you when she sees you, right?" Issei gave in and got out of the uncomfortable stool he had been sitting on for hours. All his muscles hurt, and his bones felt as if he was the Tin Man before Dorothy found him and gave him oil. Issei slowly made his way out of the hospital and made his way down the streets trying not to think about anything. As Issei was contemplating getting some food, he ended up bumping into 2 thugs. "Hey, who do you think you're walking into, punk?" A tall, buff, and fat man with a bizarre combination of leather and tie-dye attire, along with his brown hair pulled back in a ponytail under a leather biker bandana. The other punk was more skinny. He had spiked black hair and similar wacky clothes. "You owe us an apology." Issei really didn't want to deal with this and tried to mumble an apology, but as he did, the fat one pushed him into the nearby alley. "Looks like we need to teach this dweeb a lesson," the fat one said, looking to his partner. "Right, Skull?" The skinny one, referred to as Skull, laughed strangely. "Right, Bulk, let's teach him a lesson." Issei heard Dreg in his head speak to him. "I smell ogres." Issei, now knowing that, felt a little fire build up in him despite his drained state. In one move, Issei summoned his gauntlet and engulfed it in flame. Just as the 2 charged, Issei did too. He went straight for Skull, fist reared back and slamming him in the head with a Fire Dragon Meteor Fist. Strangely enough, the moment his fists hit Skull, he could see a red shoe striking the back of Bulk's head. The 2 thugs' appearance morphed the moment they lost consciousness. Their skin changed colors. Bulk's looked purple while Skull's looked orange. Small, thick horns poked out of their foreheads, and 2 of their lower teeth grew bigger, poking out of their mouths in a point. When it was all over, Issei saw a boy a little younger than him, with a mess of green hair standing over the unconscious Bulk, small trails of green electricity arching around him, and a strange gray muzzle over his mouth. He wore tan shorts and a light blue t-shirt under an open green plaid overshirt with its sleeves rolled up. "You okay?" the boy asked through the muzzle. The stranger's eyes went to the gauntlet on his right hand. "Oh, you're one too," he said excitedly. The boy's green electricity and gray muzzle disappeared as he straightened with a grin on his face. "My name is Izuku Midoriya. I'm a chosen hero too." "Chosen hero?" Issei asked, confused. Just then, a large growl came from Issei's stomach. Issei chuckled half-heartedly and awkwardly. "Sorry, I haven't eaten in a few days." The boy went from looking friendly and sociable to panicked and awkward. "You got in a fight and used a chosen treasure on an empty stomach. Quickly follow me." Before Issei could protest, Izuku grabbed his arm and dragged him along in a hurry. Issei didn't have the strength to protest, using what he had left to stop the thugs. It wasn't long until Izuku dragged him to this strange building complex. The place had the looks of a modern university, with several stories high. It was composed of 4 towers, that the base was connected to each other by wider 1-story sections. Off in the distance behind the main complex looked like a track field, stadium, and several large warehouse buildings. This whole area was surrounded by a high wall with only the front main entrance. Issei could tell there was some kind of strange field of energy surrounding the place as he was dragged in after Izuku showed his ID badge and talked his way into letting Issei into. Izuku led him to one of the ground floor sections between the towers that ended up being a massive cafeteria. He ordered 2 large bowls of udon and found them a seat near a window for some privacy. Issei couldn't help himself once the bowl was in front of him. He picked up the chopsticks and started scarfing down the noodles. It wasn't until he was halfway finished with his bowl did he stop for a breath. He looked up to Izuku and finally introduced himself. Sorry for not saying it sooner. My name is Issei Hyudu, thanks for the assistance earlier. I really wasn't in the mood to deal with those guys. Izuku smiled. Glad I could help. I just saw two paras grouping up on you and couldn't stand by and do nothing. I was surprised you turned out to be a chosen hero too. Do you not go to Arnor University as well? Arnor University? Issei asked, slurping down more noodles. Izuku looked surprised. I figured anyone with a treasure would have heard of it? That's where we are right now. Issei got even more confused. You keep saying that, what treasure? Izuku got this excited look in his eyes. Your gauntlet, that's your treasure, right? I saw you call it out of thin air and use it to summon fire to attack that para. Red flags started to flag Issei's mind. Tomoe and Drake also gave him confirmation of their unease. Instead of correcting him on the terminology of his gear, he asked a different question. What's a para? Oh, are you a gem? Someone who only recently got a treasure? I'll explain for you then. Paras are what we call abnormal creatures that infect the earth. At that, Issei's brow twitched in irritation. It stands for paranormal, and we are heroes chosen by God to eliminate the paras from threatening mankind by his gifts of our sacred treasures. This school is kind of like Hogwarts in those Harry Potter books. Normally, if someone wakes to a treasure, the school sends someone to invite you to this school so you can be safe from any para threats and get proper training on how to use your treasure. More flags sprang up in Issei's mind. To keep from showing his discomfort, he picked up his bowl of udon and drank the rest of the soup. In his mindscape, Tomoe and Drake both nodded in an unspoken agreement between the three on how to handle this situation. Issei sat down his bowl and changed up his demeanor a bit. Thanks for the food. What do I owe you? Izuku waved him off. Don't worry about it. Food is provided here for free. You looked like you needed it. If you don't mind me asking, you looked like you've been through a rough time before even the paras came for you. You okay? Issei felt the sadness creeping back. I just had a really rough week. Got injured, lost some friends, and one is in the hospital because I wasn't able to be there for her. A single tear escaped his left eye as he thought of his friends. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be insensitive. Izuku apologized. After Issei reassured him he was fine, he continued. Why don't I show you around? Might help keep your mind off things. And who knows, maybe you can start coming here too. Issei followed Izuku as he gave him the grand tour of the place. And to be honest, it scared him. There were students and teachers all over the place, and they all seemed to have sacred gears of some kind. He showed him classrooms where teachers were teaching the students the dangers and evils of not only supernatural beings that one might expect like demons and ghosts, but ones you would normally see as good like guardian yokai and angels. There was training grounds, labs, and magical libraries all over to hone their skills. They stopped by a laboratory where Issei froze in shock after reading the display screens. Izuku, not noticing the fear in his eyes, explained what they were looking at. This is the Hero Regeneration Lab. Here's where we all get our treasures evaluated and registered. We also found a way to make and grant weaker treasures that Dean Osborne managed to create himself to those who come to us after losing loved ones to the paras. Issei was speechless. He was able to make a sacred gear only because he was in the gap and used its raw energy to accomplish it. How is it that a mere human can do it? Speaking of Mr. Osborne, Izuku said, gesturing to this intimidating man who was taking off gloves after just finished, according to the display screen, implanting a man-made gear called a quirk of electricity in this foreign student with dreads. Oh, it looks as we have guests. If you will excuse me, young Virgil, just lay still for roughly 30 minutes for your new treasure to settle in properly. I'll be right back. As he got up, Issei could see his full, large stature. He was about 6'2", roughly in his 50s, had shoulder-length black hair with a single strand of gray going down his left temple. He had an imposing goatee and muscles that rivaled a sailor. He stood with a posture of someone who is or was military. If Issei didn't know better, it felt like standing in front of a roaring lion. The man held out his hand, and even his grip was like iron. Mr. Osborne, this is Issei. I ran into him on my way to the dorms being attacked by some paras. Turns out he was chosen too. He has a cool fire treasure, Izuku said excitedly. Is that so? Pleasure to meet you, young man. You have yourself a treasure too? I would very much like to see what you can do. We here at Arnor University strive to provide a safe haven for all those who get caught up in the paranormal pandemic. He pulled out a pamphlet from his lab coat and handed it to Issei. Issei opened it to see it was a school syllabus with all kinds of purge the world of anything supernatural jargon written all over it. It was very human supremacist vibed. Issei had a feeling he couldn't just say no. Izuku took to the task of leading them to the training field with gusto. As they left, Issei saw a monitor with the words Project Omni on display before he was led away. Izuku got into a conversation with Goliath as they walked, giving Issei means to walk a few paces behind looking for an escape. Two students suddenly came up from where they were watching his discomfort from a distance and walked pace with Issei. In hushed tones so Izuku and Osborne couldn't hear, the boy on his left with black hair and a Korean accent said, "Don't bother." Issei was shocked at the sudden escort. The boy on his right with white hair and green eyes spoke next in just as quiet as tone. "There is no escape from here. We tried." Issei's shoulders relaxed a little as he continued pace, hoping Izuku would keep Osborne distracted. "How do you mean?" Issei asked. Keeping his eyes on the two in front of them, the first boy answered, "There is a barrier around the whole campus. It keeps anyone without a treasure from seeing anything but a school from the outside, as well as a reinforced multi-layer barrier that prevents anything from going in or out anywhere besides the entrance." The white-hair boy finished his statement. "Without a pass, you can't leave. For most students, Osborne is their savior and will do anything for him. We see through his act. We had friends that were paras and were killed by his so-called heroes in our so-called rescue." Issei processed their words, confirming all the red flags he suspected. As they stepped onto the first floor, they were stopped on the way to the training ground by this beautiful woman in an outfit that didn't look like a teacher, more like a military officer. The woman had icy blue hair pulled in a side ponytail and piercing pink eyes. "Dean Osborne, we have a situation." "What is it, Miss Revolt?" Goliath asked. Revolt reported that a large tribe of goblins were spotted in a forest south of Mount Fuji. Issei couldn't help but think, so what? Doesn't sound like they did anything other than just exists. Goliath just gave a smile like that Issei always imagined supervillains gave. "Perfect timing, Mr. Hayudu. Let's see just what you can do." This made Issei flinch. He never mentioned his last name. "Oh, and look who joined us, Mr. Sung, Mr. Fenton. Why don't you join us? It's been a while since you joined a field mission." The two gave him dark looks and mumbled their agreement to join. Issei was not liking this. Izuku, however, seemed oblivious to the tension in the room. "All right, we get to see what you can really do, Issei." He pulled a notebook from out of nowhere and started asking Issei a barrage of questions about his so-called treasure. Issei gave partial truths, only describing fire attacks he has done before. He then noticed that on the boys Osborne addressed as Fenton and Sung had ankle monitors on them. Issei could tell they must have tried to leave before. The woman referred to as Revolt lead them to a garage and into a military-style vehicle with 6 wheels. Revolt and Izuku sat in the front. Apparently he never gets to be around her and took to asking her tons of questions. Issei felt bad for the kid. He clearly just thought he was doing the right thing and fighting monsters like in some anime. Fenton, who introduced himself as Danny, and Sung, who introduced himself as Jin. Wu sat in the back with Issei. It was clear this was designed to hold up to 8 people in the back, and it looked to Issei as if this Goliath was preparing for a war. Wu looked to Issei and said, "You look like you just had a revelation about the situation." "This looks like a military vehicle, not no school bus," Issei said bluntly. Danny nodded, confirming his suspension. "That's exactly what it is. Osborne first started in politics a few years ago. He is not just our dean, but a member of the Diet. He made a huge part of his campaign advertising human strength and resilience with the people not knowing he was talking about in comparison to the paranormal." "Jin," Wu continued, "he won his election and almost instantly founded this school. On the surface, it's a school that goes from preschool all the way to university, with dorms included, with the people seeing it as a place where anyone from the elite to people with nowhere left to go can attend and live to strive for a better future." Danny looked to his ankle monitor and continued, "But secretly it's a military breeding ground for sacred gear users to form his own personal anti-supernatural army." Issei's eyes widened at that. "You know they are called sacred gears? I thought you all called them treasures?" Danny scoffed. "Like I said before, not all of us were saved by AU. I have a gear that allows me to switch between a state of alive and dead. I have powers similar to that of a ghost and more. I can even communicate with the dead. A few years back, a rival of mine killed my family and friends in an act of revenge for me stopping him from trying to get with my mom. Issei raised an eyebrow. Danny just held up a hand. Long story, anyway, since I can communicate with the dead, I at least had that means to keep in touch with them. But when they found me, without questioning, they cast a spell to permanently put them to rest. Issei looked sympathetically to him. I'm sorry, man. Jin, Wu told his story. I was experimented on by cultists in some strange stone temple after they slaughtered the group of heroes I was with. Gileath shows up, and instead of saving me, he finished the ritual. Issei's eyes widened at that. That's horrible. Danny looked to him as they turned onto the highway. So what's your story? Issei proceeded to tell them about Joker, Raynar, and the Fallen, meeting his new friend in the demons, the fight with the Knights of Swords, ending up in the Gap, losing his friends while one was in the hospital, and now meeting Izuku. Speaking of meeting with Izuku, Issei said as he stood up. He called forth Tomoe's gauntlet and made a mist gate and hopped in confusing Danny and Jin. Woo! After he entered the gate and stepped into his personal realm, he then opened a gate to the alley while he met Izuku, and sure enough, he saw some suspicious adolescents clearly looking for the place Izuku referenced. Issei boosted enough that he could lift Bulk and Skull quickly and threw them in his mist gate and followed after. Shouldn't hurt to leave them here for now, Issei said to his dragons. He then opened on back to the transport vehicle and hopped back through, surprising Danny and Jin. Woo. Wait, what'd you just do? They both asked at once. Issei shushed them so the two up front won't hear. Issei called both his gauntlets and told them the true nature of his sacred gears. They were shocked that his gear wasn't fire, and that he had not just a heavenly dragon gear, but 2 heavenly dragons as gears. Does Izuku know? Jinwoo asked. No, to be honest, I could tell something was off about the place from the get-go. Izuku saw me doing some fire magic Drake taught me and assumed that was my power. I don't think he is a bad kid, just misled. What about your portal ability? You just showed you can leave anytime. Why bother coming with us on this raid? Danny asked. Issei instantly looked serious. Because I couldn't stand by and hear that some creatures were about to be attacked for simply existing and do nothing. He then looked to Thyre Ankles. And I couldn't just leave you guys behind. After a few hours of commuting, the transport vehicle arrived at the base of Mount Fuji at the Fuji Subaru Line 5th station. They pulled into the lower lot, and with it being only 2 in the morning, there wasn't many people around. Officer Revolt looked to the 4 boys and started discussing the mission, as she called her own sacred gear, apparently called Star Shower, that looked like a barrel of a laser pistol strapped to her forearm. Our mission is to locate and eliminate the goblin threat reported in these woods. Here, new kid, strap this on. She handed him the same bracelet that was on Jinwoo and Danny. Issei knew what it was, but to enact his plan, he put it on his wrist. They haven't seen him summon a gear on yet, as tight as he could, and heard it lock. This will monitor your position and alert us if you find any paras or get too far from location. Stay within the bounds of the mountain covered by the 5th station line. You are to wait till backup arrives if you find the tribe. Your bands will detect the presence of the tribe when they are within range and alert the rest of the party. Wait for full backup before proceeding. Is that understood? She said with military-like authority. The group nodded before she could start assigning directions to search Issei used Tomoe's power, and could sense the tribe south of the station further down the hill out of sight. I'll take the south, he volunteered. Revolt raised an eyebrow but agreed. Eager to join up, I take this as a sign that Izuku's infectious enthusiasm rubbed off on you. Very well, you can take the south. Following his lead, Jinwoo volunteered to take southeast and Danny volunteered southwest. Revolt, knowing their track records, hesitated, but then thought they couldn't do much with the anklets on and agreed. Izuku, seeing everyone volunteering, didn't want to be left out and volunteered for the west side search. This actually just helped add less suspicion to Issei's plan. Revolt sighed. I'm acting major here and supposed to assign tasks, but this is fine. Very well, I will take the east. Everyone go roughly 100 yards sweep. If you don't find anything, report back to the caravan and wait for the rest to return. Is that understood? They all said yes, madam, and began their patrols. Issei made pace straight south after jumping over the lot's railing, landing on the forest slope below. After about 50 paces, Issei stopped and waited. Soon enough, just as they planned, Jinwoo and Danny diverted Thair routes and joined him with no monitors on their ankles anymore. Back in the transport, Issei used his gate powers carefully to make a small gate of mist and manipulated it to form over the boys, teleporting them without teleporting the monitors. Then he brought them back bracelet-free. "You guys good?" Issei asked. Danny nodded. Strapped mine to a rock and made it float and pushed it southwest. Should keep drifting down the mountain for a few hours before it crashes into something. Jinwoo added, "I made a shadow out of a dead squirrel I found and strapped it to it. Commanded it to race down the mountain." Jinwoo had the ability to make a shadow clone out of the dead. He can also manipulate shadows to his will. Apparently, according to him, when he comes across the dead, before he can make a shadow's clone of it, he had to defeat it in battle in some pocket dimension between life and death. These fights apparently take place outside of time and space, so it never looks like anything more. Then him saying arise and one appears to others. Danny looked at Issei's bracelet and asked, "What about yours?" Issei just smiled and summoned his boosted gear. Doing so stretched the band till it couldn't hold and it snapped, dropping to the ground. "We should have a few minutes before she catches on that I'm not moving. If we head out now, one should be able to warn them." The trio made their way through the woods until this wave of pink fog waved past them. Danny explained to Issei that it's simply referred to as the mist in the supernatural world. It can only be seen by people like them, humans with gears, because its whole job is to hide the supernatural from humans. When a human gets close to anything supernatural, the mist is generated by the supernatural beings without them even knowing it. Obscuring what humans see to make it make sense to them, their gears protected them from it. They stepped into a clearing that he could swear wasn't there before. A rough-looking village sat in the clearing full of deerskin tents and short green-skinned creatures with large noses and pointy ears. They all looked no bigger than a 10-year-old human. At the boy's sudden appearance, the tribe panicked. The women and children fled into their tents as the men stepped forward, holding wooden clubs and weapons, seemingly made out of random garbage they found like trash can lids, pipes, and one was simply holding a stick with a boot tied to the top. The one in front was elderly, Barley holding himself up on his cane. They all shook in fear as the old one spoke. "Be gone, humans. We want no trouble with your kind. Please leave us in peace." Issei lifted his hands up open and slowly showing no aggression. "We come in peace. We came to warn you, not harm." The goblins seemed to calm a little. Jinwoo could see some of the women and kids poking their heads out to listen in. "You see, we also don't agree with how some humans treat life forms like you," Danny continued. "We were sent by the sacred gear users in the city with 2 more people to get rid of you, but instead, we 3 wanted to help you evacuate before the others get here. We can stop them from running for you, but we can try and help you escape." The goblins looked skeptical as the leader turned back to them. "Even if we believed you, where would we go? There is no place where we are not constantly hunted. Even amongst supernatural, we are considered the weakest. This was the only safe place we could find to make camp, and even then we occasionally get attacked by dire wolves," the elder said, looking down his sorrow. Issei felt really bad for them, just as he thought. They were just some people trying to live in peace and not bothering anyone yet. Just because they are different, they got picked on. "Don't worry, I have a place you can..." The sound came abruptly as a wave of kicked-up dust appeared, where Izuku suddenly landed in the village. Green electricity bouncing off his skin as he stand in a crater where the village campfire once was. "Crap," Danny said, just as a ball of blue light almost shot the village elder. Just before Danny grabbed him and as many goblins within reach and used his ghost gear to make them all intangible. A few goblins were not close enough and got some splash damage from the blast. Izuku charged a nearby tent with a fist pulled back. Jinwoo acted quickly and summoned a shadow he had in his arsenal to block him. A giant shadow bear appeared before Izuku, taking him by surprise and slapped him aside hard enough it tossed him back into the woods. "Issei, quick!" Jinwoo shouted as he bent shadows to form daggers in each hand, racing to the spot Izuku was sent flying. Issei didn't hesitate and called both gears and made a mist gate. Just as another shot fell from the sky, Barley missing him. He saw where it came from as he tracked its path. Floating above the village was a small mirror the size and shape of a phone. Another blast of starlight came from the east and reflected of the mirror down towards him. Danny noticed too. and in a fit of anger, his eyes glowed green, and he shot his hand out, and a blast of an eerie green light that felt like it was between a light, liquid, and gas state shot from his hand and intercepted the blast. Issei looked to Danny, puzzled. "You can shoot lasers?" Dan just looked at his hand. "Apparently." He sounded just as confused. From the trees, Jin-Woo came flying in and crash-landed in front of the group. "Ouch!" Issei shouted at the goblins if they wanted to live to jump into the silver mist. Reluctantly at first, a goblin with an oddly football-shaped head and a big round nose like a clown jumped in and stuck his head back out to encourage everyone it was okay. The rest of the male goblins went to collect the women and kids as they made their way into the gate. But there were a lot of goblins. From the edge of the clearing, Major Revolt appeared with a mech that looked as if it was the transport vehicle they came in transformed into a robot armor. From the woods to Issei's right, Izuku appeared looking upset and betrayed. "How could you guys? What are you doing? How could you attack your friends or aid monsters like them?" Izuku shouted in frustration, almost pleading it to not be real. "Halt! You're under arrest for aiding paras and siding against humanity!" Revolt shouted, pointing her mech's gun arm and her gear in the direction of the portal. The three braced themselves for the attack. Issei was trying to figure out how to best block the attack despite using all his strength to maintain the gate, when unexpected help arrived. A shout came from above the mech. "Know your place!" A silhouette descended gracefully and fluidly, delivering a devastating axe kick, crushing its gun arm. As she stood up after dealing such a blow, she instantly gave a roundhouse kick to Major Revolt, sending her crashing through a tree. Now getting a better look at her, Issei recognized the woman. She had long silver hair that blowed softly from the breeze. Her piercing ruby color eyes looked right at him as if scanning his very soul. It was the same woman that kept him from walking into the street that day he met the demons. The silver hair woman shouted, "Now, go!" Izuku shouted, "Ms. Revolt!" and dove to confront her attacker, only to get a kick himself. However, Izuku was strong enough to block. The two broke out in a fight at the edge of the village. Jinwoo kept their attention on the task on hand, shouting for Danny to help him gather the people further back in the village, while Issei reassured the ones going in the gate. Soon enough, all the goblins were inside the gate and Issei commanded Danny and Jinwoo to jump in as well. Issei looked to the strange, beautiful woman. "Come on!" The woman shouted sacred gear and called forth this massive broadsword of black metal with silver engravings alongside the blade and used it to bash Izuku with the flat of the blade like a baseball player. As Izuku went flying, she looked Issei in the eyes, even from so far away. "We will meet again, Issei Hyudu, but now you must go without me. I bought you time, so you owe me a favor that I will be cashing in soon. Now go." She turned to continue dealing with the now awake Major and Robot. "Thank you. I'll return the favor someday, I promise." And with that, Issei released his hold on the gate and jumped in before it collapsed.